Hello, welcome back to another episode of our Mega-lo-Mania in Unreal Engine. Um, Yesterday we looked at some basics of multiplayer and came to the conclusion that certain elements of what I was doing in terms of the sector controller, components like that just wasn't going to work in a multiplayer environment because of I wouldn't say limitations of the engine replication, more of just simply the way that works and the fact that I hadn't really accounted for it very well. So, I'm gonna hopefully be able to jump right in and start making some additional components and blueprints for hopefully the right structure, and just kind of see how it goes. So, one thing that I did manage to test yesterday was that a sector doesn't lose its technology level when it is lost. So I expect that if a sector was lost and then retaken either by the same player or a different player, the level of the building would be the same. But what I don't know is whether the technology that has been researched and therefore unlocked would also remain unlocked. But that means that certain elements, certain bits of information are going to have to be on the sector level. So we have here, I think this was just the basic blueprint that we were using for testing purposes. Nope, this is even more basic than that. That's a pawn. That's a pawn. I think maybe we don't need that one. So I'm going to create a castle pawn, and I'm also going to create some actors for the mine and the factory, and the laboratory. And we're also going to have an actor for the sector. I think I have the sector actor here. I think. Yeah, I'm not sure what we did here. Actually, we'll keep the sector actor we created before. I don't think I did enough to it to be a problem. So we'll leave the sector controller for the time being, and we're also going to leave the slab, although the slab will probably become perhaps a component of the sector actor moving forwards, I think. We'll see how it goes today with that to determine what we do. So various things that a castle is going to need in terms of variables, and I think I'm going to try and avoid having a structure inside the actors, and just trying, because of the separation that I'm kind of going for, maybe I can just have variables on the actors. And potentially what I'm going to try and do is the factory is quite a good one, because you can't do anything that the factory allows you to do without the factory itself. The lab is a little bit more awkward because you can do research without the lab. It's just normal design blueprint side of things. But the lab allows you to do the more advanced stuff. And the mine, again, you can gather resources without the mine. So it's more difficult to put the logic that they relate to purely into those actors, because they don't potentially exist within the game until they've actually been created. Now, potentially we can have a lab in the map, but just not render it until or unless they build it. And the mine we could have rendered as either the deep mining pit mine or just the other black hole version. maybe it is the one's the pit and one's a deep mine. So it could render as the pit or it could render as the mine. The gathering one is a bit awkward because again it's kind of have to be there without being rendered. But one advantage with trying to take that approach is that while the UI would show all of the information from all of those sources, the respective building would actually be in charge of handling the population assignments. And the castle would just hold the population. So if we just make sure we're kind of looking at the right stuff, we'll just drop into this map. So we're going to say that the castle at least has a population, and that population will be replicated. And the castle probably holds the resources. They come from the mine, but they would probably be stored in the castle so that they can be accessed by the other actors. But the castle also has an owner, and the owner is a player. So one thing that I am going to add to the player controller, we're going to disconnect anything that currently exists. Definitely have to come back to it. But the player controller is going to represent the actual player, what player colour he is, what god I think they're referred to is. So I guess we're just going to have a variable of colour, so that we're not tying the colour to the god. So we can I think if we put that over there, I can no, can't steal the, oh no, I can steal the colour from the actual game. Just want the lighter green. Okay, since I always start with the green one, that's the green. I think, yeah, I suppose the colour needs to come from somewhere else, doesn't it? So the only thing that persists between level transitions is the game instance class, which we don't currently have. So we'll create that. I'm going to call this our ML game instance. Give us some information about the fact that it's being created, and I think we have to change our game mode. Is it maybe the level blueprint? Nope. Try and find where our I think maybe this one then. Yes, so this is where we set all the class defaults. We want to find, trying to find the game instance. Does not look like it's here. Where do we set the game instance then? So it's certainly not set yet. So the game instance is set in the project settings. So set that. Now we should get our little hello somewhere. Probably too much spam to see now, printing out so much on the output log. Make sure we're using our game instance, otherwise I might spend a lot of time trying to figure out why certain other things aren't working. Okay, there we go, it's right there. So they're both in their game instance. So there is an element of the fact that the game instance is actually created on every client, so they each have their own. Get current players. Let's see what this one is. So it should be -1 and -1. So what I'm trying to figure out is, how do we figure out which is which? Get my player index. Create a player. Get current players. Session result. Nope, don't know what that one's about. So we definitely could create players, but what I don't know is, again, what index to use. See if that makes any difference. Okay, a local player already exists for player 0. So I'm trying to effectively allocate each player their own colour to start with. which will obviously reflect the character they've chosen, or could be based on the character they've chosen. It's hard to really say which way around what it should store, but colour seems to work okay for now, except I can't really see how see how we can figure out which player is which. So we know player. Create play didn't work. Forgot to tie that up. Let's see if that is now better. They still both say -1. Get my player index. Create session. No name on the server name. Okay, so let's do as so the game instance can't check if it has authority. I wonder why that is, because I think the authority was just a check on something like is server or something. In the game event graph. So we did the whole thing there. Oh, so it's an actor that it does that. Okay, so we can check on is server, I guess. We'll create a session. We'll join a session. See if this makes any difference. So sessiony stuff didn't work either. And maybe all the session stuff's done anyway, because I'm starting it within the editor. Okay, so let's just stop that happening. So that's the problem, because it's coming from that event. Okay, so now we shouldn't really do anything at all. Strange, weird image on the right hand side. Yeah, so can't create a session in the game instance. Maybe that's just it can't do it there. Let's see what we've got in the player control, in the level, sorry. Yeah, so the player controller ID is -1 for both of them, which is unhelpful. Yeah, so I'm not really sure how this is working. In terms of identifying one player from another seems to be pretty awkward. Let's go back here and say so just trying to see if the server flag works. And it's just too quick when it does it right away. Yeah. So the server and the client do recognize each other as server and not server. I guess that's better. So I can use that for now, since we're only going to work on 2 players. So I have 1, 0 and 1. to be a color. Actually, probably do it the other way around. So we don't, when we make a colour like that, we don't get a colour picker, so we don't need to do it in there, do we? We can do it like this instead. So that's green. And yellow. Blue. And I don't have the red one. Yeah, it's a bit better. I'll do it with 195, and then they're all consistent shades of colour. Red. So green, yellow, blue and red. Or red. Green, blue, yellow. With the colour order we're doing. So what we're basically doing is that if they were playing through the levels properly, the first level would allow them to select their player colour, one of those 4 colours, and that would be stored in the game instance. Since we don't have that first screen yet, and thus they can't choose it, I just wanted to pick appropriate default colours. So we've got an array of colours, and we're going to have actually no, we won't put the colour here. What we'll do is we'll get player controller. Oh, get player controller ID, we don't need that one. Cast to our appropriate player controller type. the player controller we need to add, we've already added colour. So then we'll set colour. So that says our player color, and now we have our player color set. So we're going to say again that slab doesn't render on both screens. I'm not quite sure why the slab isn't rendering on the client anymore. Let's see what errors we're getting when we run the game. I think there's somewhere where we set the camera. There we go. Let's run the game. So we want to get the game index. We don't want to do any of that. Sorry, the game instance. But we need to first cast it to our custom typed game index. And we only really want to do that once. So we store it. Now we've got it. We should be able to say get the player index to the controller. And we want to cast the player controller and again we want to set that here so we don't have to do it again. So that's kind of just some initial setup that we have to do. And then we can set the player control camera. Target's game. Okay, we didn't have to do some of that. So we don't want to get the player controller again, we want to use the one we've got. The client is still really messed up. It didn't used to be either. Whatever I've done by untying things has actually made it worse, which is a bit odd. We're looking at the player controller here. Nothing happening in the event graph of the player controller. Wasn't anything happening there anyway, apart from like a number of events that don't work anymore anyway. So don't know what's going on with it. Don't know why it's being reset. be... So none of this is getting called anymore. We were only doing this bit here, where we're calling set camera. Probably would be better actually to pass in the player controller here. So I'm not seeing any errors when we start now. But definitely within this case we don't have any So we have two player states. We have a player camera manager, multiple camera actors. So the original camera actor here, that one looks okay, but we've got two camera here. I'm not really sure why those two exist where they do. So they must be created automatically. See if there's a way to prevent the camera being created. See if that makes any difference. No. They're both off screen at the moment, but the server still works. The client does not. Where else? So the only thing I remember changing was, or the only thing that I changed was when we set camera. That really was the only thing. Does that make any difference? No, that doesn't make any difference. And that does. Maybe something to do with setting the player index. Player index I use for get player controller here. And so if I run that now, I mean I still end up with these, yeah, two camera actors that are being created and just completely useless, but maybe we need to change this one from camera actor to orthographic. Yeah, so it'd be nice if there was some way to say to use that camera from the start rather than have them create another camera that's not going to be used. See where it was that I made changes. Okay, so I'm still struggling to really identify one player from another. So what I wanted to do was, when the, let's say when the level is constructed that one. We're currently setting the game instance and the player controller, so we'll leave it as that. And the setting the camera we'll keep as well. Maybe the issue was that the server has player index 0 and player index 1, but a client may only have player controller 0. We could do is, yeah, let's test that out quickly. So in here we'll say I think what I was doing wrong was here I say the server is player 0 and the client is player 1, but the client is player 0 on itself. So what we can do is get player index, get player controller, that one. Let's make that replicated. See no output there. It's odd because it worked before. Oh. Be nice if there was some visual way that it said whether that was true or not. But it does seem to fail to cast it to my own player controller, which is odd because it succeeds here in the game event graph. Maybe the game instance can't get hold of it in its construction. Okay, so I think that makes some sense. So we're going to say that we're not going to use the player index anywhere else. I think that's where the issue was, because we're just setting a colour based on that player index. And then won't do any of that. In the level, we won't do that. Let's find out then. Really should be red, green, blue. Just make it clearer. Too slow. No, they're the same. Red, green, blue. It's all the same. Okay, so I'm going to have to look up how to differentiate one player from another, because this hasn't really panned out as well as I'd like. Let's focus on something else instead. So yeah, don't want any of that anymore. So we'll stick with the getting the instance and the player controller, because we'll probably need them one way or another. But we've just got that now, and we are going to set within our game mode our default pawn class to a castle, and we should therefore from that so it's got a pawn, it is valid, and it is our castle. So we're going to make the castle show something, and it really is just going to be our sprite. We have our buildings, sprites, and let's pick the very basic one. So that's our sprite. We'll make the billboard scale and we're also going to add to it our animation. Nope, where did I put it? Here we go, our little green flag. Always zoom in too close. We need that to be front lit. To move our little flag to the center. Should be about right. So the flag goes into the building, that makes sense. At the moment it's the green flag. We can obviously change that later on. We can actually build up the scene route dynamically depending on what's been given, but we'll deal with that another time. So somewhere in there our castle is being displayed, so what we'll do is we'll drop down a pawn, give it a location on our island, and we can use its position here to determine where it should go. So we want to draw it in front, so I'll definitely have a Y of 1, and then we've got some other numbers, 114 and minus 27. So what we'll do is on construction control pawn. What do we do in the level? Get controlled pawn. Get con. Nope, can't do that here. Begin play. Don't know why I couldn't get it before. Okay, so make a vector. We're going to say, as we did in the, it's 114 and minus 27. Will transform, I think. Location. We'll go for set actor location actually. We want it to teleport there. Can't have two begin plays. Okay, so we don't know if that's the right one or not, because we still have the one here. So we can hide in game. It should mean that if we run it, okay, we don't see it. We want to make too many. Want to make the player controller, that needs to be 1. Something saying false. I think that was this one over here. Yeah, that's saying false now. So the control pawn is invalid. That would mean that, where are we? It's invalid in this case too. Bit straight. Make that red. While okay, controller pawn is invalid. I'm sure it was valid a minute ago. If we make within our game, bring this one back, does that make any difference? No. Okay. Let's just get rid of it. So we say the default pawn is the castle. Maybe the player controller. Attach to pawn. Nope. Do we need to spawn it? Does it come into play on its own? Always more difficult than it should be. Game mode. Nope. Doesn't work anyway. Don't need any lighting. So let's see if this works any better. Okay, so now it says true. That's okay, and we have the castle, and it's got a flag. Okay, that was a lot harder than I'd have liked, but it looks like we have to, in this, at least in the way that this is all pieced together, create our own pawn. Yeah, so it's makes sense that it says that it's false to start with, I think. I think actually we don't really care about that anymore. We know if it works, it's going to show up. If it doesn't work, it won't show up. Okay, that makes sense. So the server creates the first pawn for both the players, which obviously is the castle. And the castle has a population. Get rid of that one too. Back to a single player for now. Till we figure out how to differentiate the players, we're just going to stick with just one. So that's our kind of player in the world. The game instance is not helping us right now. What's next? So after we've possessed our castle, we really should be putting the castle down on the right sector. So we want to go through the process of creating the island sectors again, given the island name. So the island name is going to have to come from the game instance. I wonder if I'm just going to call it the island. So we'll replicate that as well. Doesn't need to be an array. So rather than the level stating which island it is as it has done in the past, we're going to get that information from the game instance instead, because it's the game instance that exists before the level, and it's the only way to pass data between levels anyway. I don't think we need that, so we'll just make sure that it works correctly without it. Yep. Looks like there's some odd transparency with the castle, but that's a different issue. So we didn't need that. So we actually don't want to create this actor. Where are we? Not that one. Create the pawn unless the player actually owns the sector. But obviously we know that we're going to display the sector for the start point. So I wonder if probably can't have it as an actor. So this is our sector. So a sector doesn't have population. Doesn't have a replicate on population function. We don't want to do anything in the construction script, and otherwise that's all clean. So our sector actor I'll put it in the sector. Yeah, okay, that's good. So we can put the slab as I guess a child actor component of our actor itself. So that way we don't have to have two things to determine kind of how the slab works or how the actor works. Let's change that. static. Get rid of that. Okay. So if we change this now to hidden game and run, seem to have some issues with the game. Okay, target population, web sector actors. Yeah, so let's get rid of that entirely. And when we run, okay, now we've just got our castle because we're not showing that default slab. Now we could, a level really contains the slabs enough for all of our map. I wonder if doesn't look like it renders from the map type. So we could probably fix that. Better. Yeah, so I'm not surprised they don't actually fit together. Just the way it kind of joins things up. The bottom. I don't think there's anything else that's causing them to be different in size. There's no scaling or anything going on between the slabs, it's just bigger. Even if it was the bottom one. Obviously it fits there. It doesn't fit there. Okay, so in theory, all of the actors for the slabs could exist and just be kind of available on the maybe even like on the dedicated server. It could show all of them, but there's not really any point in that. So what we want to do now is create those actors when the game starts. So in the level blueprint, so at the moment we have this get island sectors call. So we're going to create a new one just so that we're not breaking what's there, not that that matters too much. Just call it create sectors. Now it has access to the island name because that's obviously available on the game anyway, but we actually want to get that from the game instance. can get from here. Get island sectors, so we get from the sectors everything that has the same island name and return it. So effectively our create sectors is going to do very much the same, except our island name comes from there instead of the variable. So we're not going to let's just reshow these so we know what's in it. We're not going to create our sector blue actor with all of the data from our sector object. So some of them aren't going to have valid locations with the castles and etc. What are we going to do? So the player would be switching between the different sectors. That means we want to show the actor for a given sector. So we need some way to display the right castle and the right mine, etc. as well. I guess the level would probably store, the level is for all of them, isn't there? Okay, so for each replicated property we can say who it should be replicated to. So the population should only go to its owner. Spawn actor, no wonder. Spawn actor from class. Add it to the array. So the location of all the sectors should be pretty much the same. We just want to put them where this current slab is. 48 minus 9. That means we get effectively the ideal location that we want based on the screenshots that we've mapped it all against. Might be better to modify slightly where the camera is so that the slab is actually at 0, 0 or something like that, but for now it's 48 minus 9. So when we spawn our actor in the game, we'll do 48 minus 9. So again, we only want to do the creation of the I wonder if we need to do the possession, because we've got auto possess on. Get nope. What one was it that we had before? Forgot what it was now. Try get pawn owner. Nope. Get controlled pawn, that's what I was looking for. Get controlled pawn. Just want to know if we need to possess it. That we do. Okay. So we do have to possess it. Thought we did have somewhere that said auto possess. So when we've got authority, we want to create our sectors. And I'll have to rename this one to old and create a new sectors. So create sectors is returning the wrong thing. So that needs to be the sector actors. We should be able to set that. Okay, so we create a load of sector actors. So another thing, there's a few things that the instance going to have to transfer over for kind of the start of game. Firstly is the island we're playing on. Secondly is the where we are starting. And the character. So the start location is just going to be an integer. The start population is also an integer. And the character will just be a name because it'll be one of the god characters that we have. Now, replication wise, I think it's just owner that we want to pass these to. Actually, for the time being, we'll leave them as not replicated. We'll see how we go with that. So the start location will default to 0, start population will be 100, and the character, I always pick the same character, which is the green man, whatever his name is. Let's find out. So we'll put his name in there. And that means that once we begin our game, we create the sectors, and now we need to find the appropriate sector. So one thing that we've done in the create sectors is we've iterated through all of the sectors for this particular, well, effectively iterated through all of the sectors, picking out all the ones for the island, but we don't tell it which location it's for. We don't tell it where the location of the structures are or the resources or anything. At the moment, the sector actor has no understanding of anything. Now, one thing we could do let's have a quick go. So all of the sectors within a given island are going to have a number. So it doesn't look like we can set. So a map isn't the right one. Well, actually I did that as a set, even though I called it a map, so we'll call it a map instead. So switch it around to be integer and a map. So then we can do add. Remove that. So we add that item at that location. And the purpose being our map will contain all of the items. Now our map should contain them in order, I think. Let's just check. So the map order is going to be, even if it's an integer, going to be the way that it was when we added them. Doesn't look like there's any way to sort it. Yeah, it looks like any sorting that I wanted to do, I'd have to do it myself. So that shouldn't be a problem because I know that the order so it looks like we can just get a range. Should be fine. the for loop. Yep, that's what we wanted. So our first index would always be 0, and the last would be our length of our sectors. And so we're just going to use the map to be able to get each item from find by their respective index, and then add that value to this array. That should give us a sorted version. Which we will then return. And the reason for that means that we don't actually need to store the location, because the location is always going to be 0 to something. Is that true? No, that's not true, is it? The location skips numbers that don't apply to that particular sector. Okay, that was all a bit of a waste of time. Let's put it back as it was. Forgot that our locations are not sequential. There are gaps. That does mean that then our sector actor needs a location variable. It may need more variables based on what we've got there. It's editable, exposed on spawn. It is replicated. So location is always consistent. Can't switch those around. And the location goes straight in there. So we probably need the locations of different things and the resources passed in as well. That's going to be the it's going to basically be what we need to use to determine what everything is. Now we could in theory just pass the sector object in just to simplify the sector, but we can't pass anything in that's not not a variable on the sector, so we don't really want to define the data as a property on the sector anyway, so that's fine, we'll go with that. So we're saying that the start position of the player is 0. Now on the default map that we've been working on, there is no player position 0. So the islands, nope, not the islands, the sectors. The sectors of that is either 6 or 10. So we do want our player controller instance location to be 6, the higher up one. Okay, so where did we tell it which type of we didn't, because we did the dynamically figure it out part. Okay, so our sector is in the function library. So trying to where did I put that? Function library. Let's move that over there. So the function library was using the location of the current sector to determine what sector component name it was. But it was also using passed in sectors, which I don't think we can really do. So the question is, how do we, and can we even get the current level? Current level name, quick player. Maybe it's in the world. Let's try the world. Game instance. That's not what I wanted. Okay. Looks like it would be good if, rather than having to pass the sector into here and the location, or all the sectors, we could just use it. But this one's using the sectors controllers, and this one's using the sector structures. Within this game, we're creating a sector actor with a given location in each case. What we care about in this case is an array that contains objects that has a location. In this case, either the data location, or in this case, just a location within the sector. So it's just a matter of kind of cross-referencing the location information. I think that's all it uses the sectors for. What we could do then is just simply have an array of sector structures. It's not that set. So we just keep that handy. I think what we're going to do then is breaking the sector. Yep. So we first create that array of sectors, and then we'll create our connects to there, connects to that one. And the reason we do it that way is then we've got this complete, so it's a little bit less efficient because we actually have to loop over the sectors twice. But the purpose is that we can now tell the actor, which inevitably needs to be the slab because it needs the map type, map index. Does the slab use index? No. Let's get rid of the index. If we expose it on spawn, we can do is delete that in the construction script. Add component. Doing it this way seems to work in terms of getting that map type. And the annoying thing is that we have to, in either case, pass the map type into the sector actor, or we create the component here, which we don't really want to do. So we have the map type once we've called our function library function. So just drop that in. Or what we've called sector type, which is much better. So we don't actually, that branch actually, that's in the wrong place. That should be done before we even add it. We did miss that bit. So we actually only want to add the ones that are relevant to this island, which we now do. And then we want to iterate over those. Once we've got it, we want to find the map type. So what we'll do, component. We'll just try and go with this. Maybe then we do have to do the spawn. At least for now anyway, assuming this one worked. sure that does what I think that it does. No. It's happening anyway. Okay, that's better. In a matter of fashion. Now join that up. Okay. Sectors. So we're creating the actors here, I believe. No. Okay, so that's where the problem lies. So yes, our game instance doesn't have an island. So need to see that that goes wrong straight away. Should then be better. Yep. Oh, that's not better. Okay, I think on that note, I'm gonna stop for this evening. Yeah. kind of know how I want to organize the components. Don't think there's much change in those anyway. Don't know how long ago it was since it last saved it. That at least looks like it was before. And then there was the game instance. Yeah, so that doesn't have the name. Got a random flag over there. It doesn't really make any sense. Okay. That's better. Yeah, so we have our two actors, location 6 and location 10. So that's okay, they've been created correctly. I'm not quite sure where it went wrong and caused it to crash, but it looks like the bits are going in the right direction. We obviously have the default slab. We have some additional castles. So it's not great. There's still quite a lot of junk being added, which shouldn't really be there. Let's see which ones we can turn off. Yeah, so in that case we only have one controller. The default slab that we can't see anyway. Some default managers and stuff. Yeah, okay, so it's the top is 6, it's 10, yes, okay. So we also want to we don't want to do that. We've already added the slab to it now. I should make it visible, but it doesn't. Now it should make it invisible. Okay. So what we want to do is say not that one, that one. Not set. Actually, no. So if the player's start location equals the location that we want is not equal, we do it this way round so that we get the right Boolean value for the hidden flag. So now we should actually see the island and it should be the right one. And if we go over here to our player instance and change its start location to 10 and run it again, it makes no difference. We're still looking at 6. If it is not equal, then it should be hidden. Okay, yeah, so that was working, it's just there's no distinguishable difference between the two types yet because we don't tell this actor sector type name get. So there's a potential that the sector, this actor needs to be an actor component instead of an actor itself, but that'll be a problem for different time. In here we want to call render map on the slab. See, it's kind of been demoted to a actor component, and then I can't run the appropriate function on it. Okay, so I'll stop there. I think the sector, the slab, needs to be demoted properly to a component so I can call the right functions on it. I guess it's somehow copied it into here so it becomes a child actor component, but that obviously means kind of transitioning all over. I don't think there's any easy way to change it. It's not that I know of. To see if that, yeah, so there's an actor component there. Yeah, so that one ties up correctly. Not sure if the component can be visible. No, it doesn't look like it actually has any visibility. It doesn't have a viewport. Okay, so there's some complications there. Task for tomorrow. Obviously got to somehow manage to call render map on the child. I don't know how to cast it to something. So I just don't know how to get the slab. Which renders perfectly fine as it is. Maybe it contains it. Ah, it's a component that spawns an actor. Okay. Call function on slab. That'll be it. Done. Okay, definitely got to go now. Otherwise I'll keep doing little bits like that until it all works. Okay, so yeah, in summary of today, created the appropriate actors, kind of got some actors spawning as one would like in the start of the game. It's really a matter of kind of continuing with their implementation to try and rebuild where we had it before. So it's kind of like significantly far back in terms of progress than we were before, but I think building up the components in the right way now. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, so thanks for watching. I should be back for some more tomorrow, time permitting. Good night for now.